The echoes of battle still linger in the air. Sarah Lynn, her once bright eyes shadowed with newfound determination, stands upon the Valiant's battered bridge. Beyond the shimmering viewport lies Earth, safe for now. But the war has begun. Decades ago, she was a young astronomer and astrophysicist chasing a mysterious signal, a beacon of hope in a silent cosmos. Now she is a seasoned warrior, a leader forged in the fires of a cosmic conflict. The Valiant's recent skirmish with the Blight Scouts marks a turning point. Humanity is not alone, but the galaxy teems with dangers far older and greater than any we dared imagine. From the cryptic warnings of the Weavers to the whispers of the fallen, Sarah has glimpsed the true stakes of this struggle. The questions burn within her. How did she, a simple stargazer, rise to the vanguard of humanity's defense? What secrets led to the construction of the Valiant, to the human-weaver alliance that defies the boundaries of understanding? And what horrors lurk in the distant past, their echoes stretching across the stars, shaping the conflicts of today? The answers lie in a journey that began with a single signal and led Sarah Lynn to the very edge of the known universe. In the crucible of training, the heat of battle, and the forgotten corners of space, her destiny was forged. Now, her story unfolds as we begin to witness the rise of a species on the galactic stage, and the unveiling of a universe far more wondrous and terrifying than humanity ever imagined. As the Valiant drifts homeward, its sleek lines marred by the scars of battle, Dr. Sarah Lynn, now supreme overseer of Earth's forces, stands on the darkened bridge, her gaze lost in the star-strewn expanse. Victory weighs heavy on her, a bittersweet counterpoint to the losses suffered. The Blight, once a distant whisper, now casts a long shadow over humanity's future. Her thoughts spiral backward, beyond the recent skirmish, as well as the tense alliance with the Weavers. Her mind settles upon a different kind of battlefield, the training grounds where she had been forged into the leader she is today. The construction of the Valiant echoes in her memory, a tangible embodiment of the years-long struggle to prepare for what had just come to pass. And it all started with her training. Part 1. The Crucible. Years bled into one another, not Earth years, but the ceaseless flow of time aboard the Weaver flagship. Here, under the watchful gaze of her alien mentors, Sarah Lynn is remade. The softness of a scholar gives way to the honed physique of a soldier. Her inquisitive eyes retain a glint of wonder, but they are tempered with a newfound resolve. The Valiant's construction hums in the background, a constant reminder of the mission that drives her. Sarah, breathing heavily, sweat dripping as she performs a complex combat maneuver, proves herself unrelenting. Again! Her voice is rasp, determination overriding exhaustion. The Weaver trainer bot instantly responds to the command, its synthesized voice lacking emotion. But there's a hint of approval. Your form improves, but your mind wanders, human. Focus is as vital a weapon as any blade. Sarah, adhering to the advice, allows her movements to become sharper and more precise. It is hard to drown out the echoes. The Weaver training bot replies, "Which echoes, Sarah Lynn? The doubts, the fear, or the distant screams of a dying civilization, a potential preview of your own world's fate?" Sarah falters for a moment, the images clearly unsettling her as her strikes barely retain their intensity. No, those cries only fuel my drive to not fail humanity. It's the other echoes, the ones I can't place, whispers in the dark. They feel ancient, yet familiar. Interesting, the Weaver training bot replied. Your enhancements go beyond the physical, it seems. Yet, control remains key. Channel those echoes. Do not let them control you. A flicker of vulnerability crossed Sarah's face, momentarily replacing her warrior's mask. It's hard to explain. Like flashes of images I don't recognize. A sense of vastness and something terrible lurking just beyond my grasp. The Weaver training bot tilts its sensor array slightly, as if surprised by her words. Unexpected. Your species is known for its imagination. Perhaps these are merely side effects of your neural enhancements. Or maybe... Sarah hesitated, her gaze fixed on the glittering tapestry of stars outside the training chamber. Maybe they're a warning, a glimpse of the true threat we face. The darkness the blight is just a taste of. The room fell into a tense silence. Sarah braced herself, a touch of fear mingling with her determination. Had she gone too far, crossed a line of trust with her Weaver mentors? The Weaver training bot remains motionless for several long seconds, its sensor array seemingly scanning the space around Sarah. Finally, it responds. The universe, Sarah Lynn, is far vaster and more complex than you can yet comprehend. Darkness and light exist in a constant dance. Your glimpses may indeed be warnings, or they may be the first steps on a path not even we can fully foresee. Sarah absorbs the Weaver's cryptic words. Doubt lingers, a persistent ember within her, but it's tempered with a newfound curiosity. A path, where does it lead? The Weaver training bot offers a subtle inclination of its head. That, human, depends entirely on the choices you make. Continue your training. Focus. In time, some answers may reveal themselves. With this enigmatic exchange, the training session resumes. Sarah pushes aside the lingering unease, her movements regaining their precision. Yet, beneath the surface, a shift has occurred. Questions simmer within her, and the distant whispers she hears at the edge of her perception seem even more insistent now. Sarah's strikes grew more intense, fueled by a mix of frustration and determination. Answers, she pressed, her voice a touch sharper. That's all I ever get, hints and half-truths. Are we allies, or am I merely a tool for your purposes? The training bot did not immediately respond. Instead, it guided her through another series of combat maneuvers, pushing her physical limits. Exhausted, Sarah finally paused, chest heaving. You Weavers claim to prepare us, but for what? The blight is just a taste, you said it yourself. What else is lurking in the shadows? What's the true scale of the threat? The training bot remained silent, almost as if considering its response. Finally, it spoke. Yet its voice seemed subtly different, as if overlaid with another frequency. The dangers of the cosmos are myriad, Sarah Lynn. Some threats can be defeated with weapons and strategy. Others... The bot's voice abruptly cut off. The training room's ambient lighting flickered, then shifted to a harsh red hue. An alarm began to blare, signalling an unusual occurrence. Sarah whirled around, her warrior instincts snapping back into place. The training room doors slid open with a hiss, and a weaver, a fully formed bioluminescent weaver, entered, flanked by two others. The lead weaver regarded Sarah with an unreadable gaze. Your inquiry has gone far enough, Supreme Overseer. The training bot will be recalibrated. Dismissed. The scene with Sarah ended abruptly, the weaver's departure leaving her with a simmering mixture of frustration and a steeled determination. Meanwhile, across the vast expanse of the Weaver flagship, mirroring Sarah's struggle, another human pushed the boundaries of mind and body. The training ground was harsher here, an arena bathed in the stark light of combat rather than the controlled environment Sarah endured. Admiral Robert Holt, a man already seasoned by Earth's conflicts, locked grapples with an alien instructor whose size and strength dwarfed his own. Holt was a man nearing the end of his prime, yet his determination eclipsed even that of the younger recruits around him. The alien instructor, his voice guttural with a hint of grudging respect, growled, "You fight well, for a weakling." Holt, his breath ragged, retorted, "Today, a weakling. Tomorrow, a weapon." Determination blazed in his eyes as a well-aimed blow sent him sprawling to the unforgiving floor. A Weaver trainer observed dispassionately. "His physique is limited, but his spirit, there is potential there." The following days turned into a grueling blur. Sleep came in short, restless bursts, his aging body protesting the unrelenting punishment. Between the bruising combat sessions, Holt found himself in simulated command scenarios, facing strategists that made his past human adversaries seem like children squabbling over toys. One simulation stood out as particularly humiliating. The scenario: a hostage rescue amidst an asteroid field. The clock ticked mercilessly, each casualty weighing upon him like a stone. Holt, burdened by the virtual lives in his hands, found his usual tactics woefully inadequate. The mission ended in catastrophic failure, the screen flashing a cold defeat across his vision. Alone in the aftermath, surrounded by the echoing silence of the simulation pod, Holt slumped against the console, the warrior's mask finally slipping away. He was too old, too slow for this kind of war. The universe wasn't played like a game of chess. It was chaos, and humanity was woefully outmatched. A quiet rustle broke into his dark thoughts. One of the Weaver trainers stood observing him, its synthetic features unreadable. "Doubt cripples the mind faster than age weakens the body, Admiral," it stated, a hint of challenge in the synthesized voice. Holt forced himself to sit upright, pride warring with exhaustion. Yet there was truth in the Weaver's words. He'd come here to make a difference, not to wallow in self-pity. A flicker of defiance sparked within him. "Then teach me," he rasped, the words more a demand than a plea. "Teach me to fight this kind of war. Show me what it takes." The Weaver trainer inclined its head slightly. "Very well, Admiral. But learning is not merely a matter of being told. It requires experience." A panel slid back within the simulation pod, revealing a recessed alcove Holt hadn't noticed before. Within, an intricate device pulsed with soft bioluminescence. "This," said the Weaver, "is a neural synapse enhancer. Limited, safeguarded, but it will allow you to experience combat simulations at an accelerated pace. Years of tactical knowledge can be imprinted within hours." Holt stared at the device, a mixture of trepidation and desperate hope warring within him. The intensity of the training was already pushing him to the brink. Could he handle more? Seemingly sensing his hesitation, the Weaver added, "Knowledge alone will not save your species, Admiral. Humans excel at adaptation. It is how you rise from setbacks, how you evolve, that will determine whether you survive in this unforgiving universe." The Weaver's words echoed in his mind. He was here to forge humanity's path among the stars, not to crumble at the first true hurdle. Straightening his shoulders, Holt stepped toward the device. "Let's begin." The following days morphed into a waking nightmare. Each agonizingly short period of rest was followed by immersion into the simulation device. Alien battlefields, complex political snares, ambushes amidst uncharted nebulae. Countless scenarios bombarded his mind, relentless and unforgiving. Sleep deprivation blurred the line between simulation and reality. He'd flinch at phantom explosions and murmur tactical orders to the empty air of his quarters. The constant flood of information felt like a wildfire burning through his brain, threatening to consume him. Yet, through the haze, patterns began to emerge. He wasn't just absorbing knowledge. The accelerated experience forced him to evolve his thinking. The instinctual strategies honed on Earth were useless here. Each failure, each calculated sacrifice, slowly chipped away at his old ways, revealing glimpses of a ruthless efficiency that both fascinated and terrified him. One simulation seared itself into his memory. Tasked with defending a refugee convoy amidst a star system erupting into civil war, he found no winnable solution. Each choice led to a devastating loss. Frustration gnawed at him, echoing his earlier defeat. About to concede, a flicker of defiance sparked. This wasn't some war game. These were lives, even if simulated. There had to be a way, a desperate gamble. Suddenly, an idea formed, a ruthless gambit born from the human capacity for boldness, fueled by the cold logic the simulations had beaten into him. The results were catastrophic, yet within the devastation, a slim chance of survival emerged for a portion of the refugees. It wasn't victory as he knew it, but it wasn't utter defeat either. A strange clarity washed over Holt. An understanding that in this new war, sometimes just surviving was the most brutal triumph of all. Exhaustion gnawed at Holt's body and mind. His quarters transformed into a cell. The viewport became his only connection to the outside world. The distant stars, a cold reminder of how vast and uncaring the universe truly was. The Weaver medic assigned to him grew increasingly concerned. Holt's heart rate was erratic, his once steady hands trembled, and shadows lurked beneath his eyes with an intensity that mirrored the battles raging within his mind. One evening, as he was forced into the simulation chamber yet again, the wave of mental bombardment proved too much. A blinding flash of pain erupted behind his eyes, his vision filled with screaming colors that had no name. With a cry, he collapsed, his body seizing as the simulation abruptly shut down. Darkness swallowed him. When he awoke, it was in the infirmary, a Weaver medic hovering anxiously. The sterile white of the room was a harsh contrast to the swirling chaos of his recent memories. "You have reached your limit, Admiral," the medic said, its voice a mixture of concern and clinical detachment. To continue could cause permanent damage. Holt struggled to sit up, his head pounding in protest. "That's not an option," he managed to croak, weakness making each word a struggle. I need to be ready." The medic exchanged a silent glance with a full-fledged Weaver who had materialized at the foot of the medical bed. The alien's presence alone was a testament to the gravity of the situation. After a long moment, the Weaver spoke. "There is another path, Admiral Holt. Riskier, more unpredictable, but it offers the potential for the kind of rapid evolution your species requires." Intrigue sparked through Holt's exhaustion. "What path?" The Weaver tilted its bioluminescent head, considering. "It is a technique of our own kind," it explained slowly. "A method of accelerated imprinting. Your neural enhancer served its purpose, granting foundational knowledge. Now, we can offer something more potent. First-hand experience." Holt's brow furrowed. Experience? You mean a merging of consciousness? The Weaver medic interjected. Brief, controlled. You would witness galactic warfare through the eyes of a seasoned Weaver warrior. Decades of knowledge, honed instincts, condensed into moments of your time. A shiver coursed through Holt. This was far beyond anything he'd imagined. To share a mind with an alien being, to feel its perceptions. The thought was both electrifying and deeply unsettling. The risks, he began, his voice hoarse. The Weaver at the foot of his bed held up a multi-jointed hand. There are dangers. Your human mind is flexible, yet also fragile. The imprint could be overwhelming. Memories, sensations not your own, may linger afterwards. Even with our safeguards, there is a chance of fracturing. The silence that followed was heavy. One wrong step, and he could be lost, not his body, but his mind. Yet the alternative, the weakness that had nearly destroyed him before, it was intolerable. Do it, Holt finally muttered quietly, the word echoing the same defiance he'd felt facing the simulation device. I won't break. Part 2. A shared burden. Days had passed since Sarah's cryptic training session, the Weaverbot's warnings echoing ominously in her mind. The knowledge that humanity faced a cosmic horror far greater than the Blight gnawed at her. With each simulation and combat lesson, a relentless urgency underscored everything she did. Finally, a summons arrived. Not to a training room, but to a secluded conference chamber deep within the Weaver flagship. Sarah steeled her nerves as she entered. 3 of the Weavers, including the imposing form of leader Weaver Anya, awaited her. Their bioluminescent forms pulsed in unison, casting an ethereal glow upon the stark white table between them. Sarah Lynn, Anya began, her voice a harmonic hum that seemed to reverberate through Sarah's very bones. Persistence is a valuable trait, but knowledge untempered by discipline can be a dangerous weapon. A flicker of defiance sparked in Sarah. My people deserve to know the truth of what we face. Leader Weaver Anya regarded her with eyes that burned with a cold, alien light. And so you shall have this truth, to a limited degree. Anya's voice, normally a resonant hum, sharpened with a cutting edge Sarah had never heard before. These are not mere races or empires, Anya explained, but forces of entropy given form and terrible purpose. The Blight you faced, they are but heralds, whispering heralds, of a storm that will scour your world, your solar system, from existence. As if on cue, Anya's words triggered an unexpected reaction from Sarah. A flicker of a monstrous creature flashed across Sarah's mind, and then another and another. Visceral echoes of entities born from the darkest corners of the universe, of cosmic conflicts and devastation beyond comprehension, all flickered in rapid succession. It was a torrent of terror, each image searing itself into her soul. Anya, the wisest and most powerful of the Weavers in this part of the galaxy, recoiled ever so slightly. Her bioluminescence, normally a steady, soothing pulse, flared with an electric blue hue. The very air in the chamber crackled with unexpected energy. How had her disciple, a mere human, just manifested these echoes? Was it a strange side effect of the celestial enhancements? Or perhaps some unforeseen wellspring of the human spirit? The intensity of the visions coursed through Sarah, threatening to shatter her focus. She could feel Anya's gaze upon her, filled with a mixture of astonishment and a strange flicker of concern. No, that was impossible for a Weaver, wasn't it? Anya's focus, normally unwavering, had to be brought back into sharp relief. For now, her surprise had to be put aside to deal with the immediate situation of her disciple. She would have to investigate this further at a later time. Anya held up a hand and spoke a single word. Though uttered softly, it resonated with a chilling power that cracked the very fabric of reality. For a heart-stopping instant, Sarah felt the icy gaze of something vast and malevolent upon her, a presence from somewhere beyond her known galaxy. An intense hatred rippled through the room, shocking both Sarah and Anya. Sarah gasped, while Anya, with uncharacteristic haste, clenched her open hand into a fist, causing reality to snap back into place with a thunderous clap, the shockwave nearly sending Sarah tumbling from her chair. Sarah stifled a cry, her hands clasped over her mouth. She had always known the war was immense, spanning galaxies. But this was extinction, not conflict. Every desperate battle fought on Earth, every sacrifice now seemed pitifully insignificant against the scale of the impending threat. Silence enveloped the room, punctuated only by Sarah's ragged breathing. The weavers waited, their luminous forms unwavering as they exchanged worrisome glances. Finally, Anya spoke, a new warmness lacing her words. "I'm so sorry, my child, but that was but a glimpse." Anya held out a hand to Sarah, infusing her with comforting energy to calm her nerves. "Doubt worms its way into the bravest heart, Sarah Lynn. The scale of this conflict, the insignificance of your world. It is natural to feel overwhelmed, even broken." They gave Sarah time to compose herself. The weavers were grateful that Sarah had not fled in horror, as countless others had before her. This was progress. Sarah, almost in tears, was barely able to mouth the words. "The universe is crumbling. I saw it in my mind." One of the lesser weavers shimmered, its form rippling with an intensity that felt almost like empathy. "Yet you remain," it observed. "That, in itself, is a kind of victory." Anya raised a hand, silencing her companion. "Perhaps, Sarah Lynn, there is hope for your species after all. A sliver of potential we had not foreseen. I sense the dark echoes that just manifested in your mind. What you have just seen has brought other so-called supreme overseers to their knees. The knowledge you bear is a heavy burden. Whether it crushes you or forges you into something stronger, only time will tell." "But why have you kept these things from me?" Sarah begged. "Why have you not told me?" Anya was quick to respond. "Because, young one, once you learn of the cosmic horrors that plague our universe, you make yourself a target for their advances." Anya's gaze seemed to drift into the distance as if haunted by a memory. "Once you invite the darkness in, it will consume you until death, and even beyond. The only way to be truly prepared is to embrace the light to combat the darkness that dwells at our doorstep." Before Sarah could press for further details, Anya raised a shimmering hand. "This must suffice for now. Excessive knowledge can paralyze where action is required. Your path forward lies in experience, not just understanding." Sarah, already overwhelmed with emotion and unwanted visceral information, nodded in agreement. One of the lesser weavers glanced over at Anya, seeking silent approval to speak. Anya gave a subtle nod. "We agreed to this meeting to share knowledge with you for an important reason, Sarah." The lesser weaver began softly. "We did not want to start with the worrisome news we are about to share, knowing it would cloud your thoughts before we could give you some of the answers you seek. Sarah's brow furrowed in confusion. "It concerns Admiral Holt," the weaver continued. Everyone in the room could sense Sarah's tension rising sharply. "What about him?" she asked, her voice tight with worry. "Is he all right?" "He has just been released from the infirmary," the weaver replied. "His training was taxing, but he is well." A wave of relief washed over Sarah. "I told him not to push himself so hard," she thought. A wry smile tugged at her lips as she imagined teasing him later. "Admiral Holt has agreed to undergo a drastic form of training," the lesser weaver stated, a hint of unease in his tone. "As such, to maintain balance, you have earned a degree of trust, hence the answers we provided today." A chill ran down Sarah's spine. Holt? But his enhancements were the culmination of his training path. What could the weavers have offered him? Anya spoke, confirming Sarah's dawning realization. "The imprinting ritual we discussed with you long ago." Sarah's mouth fell open. Her mind raced, her celestial enhancements finally piecing together the puzzle. The true reason for this meeting became clear. The imprinting would give Holt a visceral understanding of the horrors Anya had described, leaving Sarah at a disadvantage. "That's why you told me these things." Her voice trailed off. Anya nodded, a flicker of pride in her eyes. She understood that her pupil, as always, would arrive at the correct conclusion. "It's too dangerous." Sarah's worry for Holt overrode her current resentment towards the weavers. Anya inclined her head. "It is a path fraught with risk, but he, like you, possesses the potential for extraordinary evolution. And in these desperate times, such risks may be our only hope." "No," Sarah blurted out, abruptly rising from her seat. She turned and fled the room, her footsteps echoing in the hallway. The weavers sat in silence, contemplating the inevitable confrontation awaiting Sarah and Robert. Sarah, having stormed out of the conference chamber, moved swiftly, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. The evils she had previously glimpsed were terrifying enough, but the news about the imprinting ritual sent a fresh wave of panic through her. Holt wouldn't stand a chance against that kind of exposure. Air whipping past her ears, she practically glided through the sterile corridors of the Weaver flagship, her celestial enhancements pushing her to top speeds far beyond a normal human. Every fibre of her being urged her to reach Holt before they performed the ritual. Reaching his quarters, she didn't hesitate, announcing herself through the comms on the door. "Robert, it's Sarah!" There was an urgency in her voice that echoed down the hallway. Robert's groggy reply came a moment later. "Please enter." With a hiss, the door slid open and Sarah stepped inside, the door closing behind her. Robert, still in his infirmary clothing, looked up in surprise as he struggled to lift himself out of bed. Relief momentarily washed over her. He was safe, at least for now. "Please, Robert, don't get up," Sarah said, her voice softening slightly. "Sarah," he muttered, concern flickering across his normally stoic features. "I must be in trouble for something," he said, half joking, though a groan of pain escaped him as he attempted to sit up. Sarah gestured for him to remain still, then shot him a wry smile. "So, what brings you to my humble quarters, Supreme Overseer?" he said, a puzzled look on his face. Sarah scrutinized Robert, her concern still lingering. Then, as if seeking reassurance, she spoke aloud. "Astra?" "A full diagnostic has been completed," her personal AI responded. "Aside from residual pain, the Admiral is recovering well. The pain medication should take full effect shortly. Not soon enough, Robert muttered. I'm glad to see you are doing well, Admiral Holt, Astra added warmly. Thank you, Astra, Robert said a bit sluggishly as the pain meds started to take effect. Sarah sank into the couch, her adrenaline fading. She looked Robert over once more. With true concern in her voice, she asked, Are you all right, Robert? I'm fine, Sarah, really, he reassured her. His words seemed to ease her immediate worry about his injuries. But the deeper concern, the looming ritual, remained a heavy weight pressing upon her. Taking a deep breath to steady herself, Sarah began, You really think I wouldn't find out? There was a hint of disappointment in her words. The Weavers. They're going to do something to you, Robert. Something dangerous. Huh? Robert said, surprised. He reached for a glass of water on his nightstand, but before his hand could grasp it, the cup floated towards him. He looked over to see Sarah fully focused on levitating the cup, the act clearly taking some effort. He smiled at her in thanks as he took a deep sip. Sorry to disappoint you, Madame Overseer, Robert said sarcastically, setting the glass down. But I just found out about this ritual myself not too long ago, gesturing at his infirmary clothes. I didn't have time to tell you. Sarah let out a deep sigh. We really need to talk to the Weavers about telepathy training. It would make communication instant and so much easier no matter the distance. And what? Robert retorted, pointing at his head. Let you have a glimpse into my thoughts. It's scary in here. He chuckled, patting his head. It's telepathy, Robert, Sarah replied, a hint of exasperation in her voice. Not mind-melding. Besides, she continued, I wouldn't tell you if I learned mind-melding anyway, because then I could mess with you and see what you truly think of me. Robert muttered under his breath, a playful smirk on his face. You'd be surprised. A tense silence fell between them. An uncomfortable amount of time passed before anyone spoke up. Sarah was about to break the silence when Robert suddenly slumped back against his pillow with a sigh. Whoa! When it kicks in, he said, his words slightly slurred. Sarah stared at him, a flicker of confusion crossing her face. The pain medication, Astra chimed in. It seems to have taken full effect, right, Admiral? The AI's voice held a hint of amusement. Sarah couldn't help it. She burst out laughing. Robert, caught off guard, joined in, his laughter a bit more uncontrollable. Ah, Sarah, he said, once he could breathe again. Haven't felt this good since that time we raided the Calathian battlecruiser that strayed into our borders. Sarah, still chuckling, countered. It was a luxury cruise liner, Robert. They were lost, their comms were down. And if I remember correctly, you went in guns blazing, terrifying the entire crew and passengers. She paused, giving him a mischievous look as his drug-addled expression shifted to one of mild confusion. And if I recall, you were feeling real good that night, she continued, because the only thing you raided that evening was the bar. Robert managed a huge grin. And if I recall, he said mockingly, I had to drag your inebriated self back to your quarters before you could pick a fight with the poor captain. He had the nerve to tell the bartender to run a tab on us, Sarah retorted. Besides, he was an idiot. Almost got everyone on board killed. Lucky for him you decided to board them instead of blasting them from our ship. She glanced at Robert, who was now staring off into space. You saved a lot of lives that day, she reminded him. Saving lives, he echoed, his voice tinged with a wistful note. That felt good. Felt like... He trailed off, a flicker of frustration crossing his eyes. It's been a while since I felt like I've truly saved anyone. Sarah returned his gaze, a warmth in her smile laced with sadness. Sarah's smile faded slightly. She moved closer to his bedside, her voice softening. And that's exactly why you can't do this, Robert. You talk about saving lives. This ritual, it could break you. What good will you be then? Robert's gaze hardened, his jaw flexing in a way that Sarah knew meant he was suppressing a retort. Finally he spoke, his voice hoarse. You think I don't know that? You think I'm not scared? His sudden revelation surprised Sarah, but she didn't back down. Then why do it? She challenged. There has to be another way to prepare us for what's coming. If we just work together... Work together? Robert interrupted, a bitter laugh escaping him. You mean more enhancements? More simulations? Those have their limits, Sarah. A limit I've hit. Maybe this ritual is the other way. Astra's voice cut into the tense silence. Admiral Holt, the Weaver delegation has requested your final say so that they can make the proper preparations. They are awaiting your confirmation to proceed. Sarah turned to Robert, a mixture of desperation and pleading in her eyes. Robert, please! Astra's jarring announcement hung in the air, casting a chilling finality over the room. Panic surged within Sarah, but her outward expression remained determined. Robert stared at the ceiling, his jaw working as if he were chewing on bitter words. The lingering effects of the medication softened the usual harsh lines on his face, making the conflict within him all the more visible. Robert, please. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper, laced with an unspoken plea. We've faced impossible odds before, and we've always found a way together. His gaze finally met hers. There was a flicker of doubt. Or was it just the hazy confusion from the medication? For a moment, Sarah thought she might reach him. Then, his expression hardened. Together won't be enough this time, Sarah, he said, his voice low but firm. I have to do this, even if it costs me. He didn't finish the sentence, but the unspoken words, his sanity, his life, echoed ominously in the silence. Taking a deep breath, he sat upright, a bit woozy from the medication. With a resolute nod, he looked toward Sarah. Astra, he managed to say, confirm to the delegation. We will proceed. Sarah met his gaze, a spark of defiance replacing the desperation in her eyes. Yes, Astra, she declared, her voice ringing with unexpected steel. Inform the delegation. The Admiral and I will proceed with the ritual together.